Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Broward sex education may be removed because of Florida delays. Sex education in Broward schools could face major changes this coming year, with a focus on abstinence or possibly no program at all. The Florida Department of Education has yet to approve Broward's sex ed proposal, first submitted in September and revised twice. The delay appears linked to contraception education as the state favors abstinence-focused curricula over teaching about birth control methods. District spokesperson John Sullivan said, quote, "Our staff is working hard to get approval while honoring the community's expectations," end quote. Emails accessed by South Florida Sun Sentinel reveal Broward officials repeatedly sought updates, but the state has provided no written responses on the approval process. Comprehensive sex ed once included LGBTQ topics and contraception, but recent laws have limited instruction on sexual orientation and gender identity. Board member Alan Zeman opposes an abstinence-only program, calling it unrealistic and harmful to students' health and decision-making. Advocates warn that restricted sex ed could lead to increased teen pregnancies and lifelong health consequences for Florida's youth. LGBTQ and health activists also warn of the dire effects this decision-making will have on STI and HIV exposures. Well, talk about going backwards. It's so scary. I remember kind of watching the evolution growing up as a kid. Mm-hmm. And, I think back, well, when did they start first talking? And it was very clinical in middle school, like I think 7th and 8th grade. They separated the boys and the girls. Yep. And then eventually they brought us together. But it was so, like we already know that and so stale that, you learn the basics, but they did teach about contraception. Right. And as we went through high school, it got a little more detailed. There was no highlights, though, until I was in university about LGBT and gender expression. Right. So I was grateful for that. I was also grateful to be in a school in the shadow of New York City. So our professor took us on a walking tour of the village, and, I took her several times. She did human sexuality and other related coursework. And I'm grateful for that. But it's scary to think that basic things like preventing pregnancies, STIs, God.
It's ridiculous, and it will be harmful. Oh, yeah. If you don't teach young people what sex is and what happens when you have sex, it's a natural instinct, and with all of the hormones in the food, young people are reaching their sexual puberty younger now than they did.
That's right.
When we were teenagers in middle school and whatnot. And if you don't teach them, they'll ask their friend. They'll see what they can find on social media. Will it be correct? Probably not. Mm-hmm. Will they get infections? Probably. Will there be a lot more teen pregnancies? Probably. Will a lot of young people's lives be transformed forever? Probably. But they don't care about it. Most children, overwhelming majority of children, do not learn about sex education, their bodies, how it all works at home. They don't.
No, they don't.
They don't learn it at home. And I believe as a public school institution, they should be required to teach these things to kids, because how else are they going to learn them? They're going to, the 12-year-olds are having these feelings and not knowing what they are. And they don't know who to talk to. But if there was a class, if there was a teacher, if they were learning about these things, they could ask the questions.
Sure. And it's, you know, I'm so sick of the right argument about indoctrination, grooming. You know, if I am lucky I made it through 7th grade. I remember going to a guidance counselor because people were more aware of my emerging sexual gender expression than I was. I was in denial, you know, tried to go to dances and things, and I knew I was different, but I did everything to try to fight that. And I went to a guidance counselor, and he said, you know, Larry, there are going to be kids like you who get picked on. And this is my guidance counselor. I was one of those football jocks, basically, he said, that picked on kids like you. And, you know, in my school system, I'm sure they're structured the same way. Often you have gym classes overlap with sex ed and health classes. And, you know, we need to at least support kids because whether you're straight, you're bisexual, or somewhere else on the gender spectrum or gender identity spectrum, you know, kids are at a tender age and they need support. They just need to be know that there's resources for them to get through the feelings, and then, you know, it's part of growing up.
Right. And be able to ask questions and have someone to go to. And, you know, hopefully the state will get wise and approve an appropriate sex education curriculum that isn't focused on abstinence, because you know why? It doesn't work. It never has, and it never will.
No.
So that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing queer